We kind of joked that we had just a therapist on speed dial in the early years, just because if we hit a speed bump, sometimes you need that objective perspective. But also getting support around you, which Scott mentioned earlier, that might be in the form of a mentor couple who's maybe just further down the road than you are on the blended family journey. Or if your church does offer a support group, a small group, get in that, because being in a room with other people who are living it, they may have said, hey, we tried this and it was helpful. Or we tried this and it backfired. And then oh, maybe I shouldn't try that. Because parents need to have these conversations, not in a vacuum. It can feel isolating to be in a blended family. So if you can be walking alongside the journey with others, that makes a huge difference.
Well, hi and welcome to Practice Makes Parent, where we understand it's not about perfection, but about transformation. I'm Dr. Deana Huerta.
And I'm Rebecca St. James. And Danny, today we are going to be talking about the land of step parenting. And I feel like this is such an important topic because even if you're listening today and this is not your particular life situation, you most likely know somebody who, it's a friend, it's a family member, an extended family member who is dealing with this and dealing with a blended family circumstance. And so I think for us to have understanding, empathy, and wisdom surrounding this is really, really important in our culture today.
It is. I've gotten to work with a lot of families on this blended family topic throughout the past 2 decades and in counseling families. And it is challenging what the kids are facing, trying to manage all kinds of emotions that come up, confusion, who do I trust, who do I not trust, why did this happen? They've even brought up a topic such as not believing in God anymore because this has happened, and the anger, the frustration. There's a lot there to unpack about kids, but then also the parents trying to attach while also wanting to guide the kids well and to connect with new kids.
There's a lot there.
There's a lot of challenge to it. And so when I see a family going into wanting to blend 2 families together, I know the challenges that are there that are up against them. But they're making a new covenant, and we want to cheer them on, regardless of what happened there. You want to be life-giving to those families. There are so many of them that say, man, I feel like an outcast at church. I feel like a tainted person coming in. I feel misunderstood. And some parents have said, my spouse died or passed away. My spouse was the one that decided to leave the marriage. Right. It wasn't me. So there's a lot there that blended families are trying to manage from even outside their home. And one thing that I noticed with some unique blended families was that they decided to be intentional about how they created a new family together. And even if they had challenges within the co-parenting and maybe another person trying to sabotage their new relationship, they said, all right, we're in it. There's no other option. And that is what we're going to be talking about here with Scott and Deana. I'm excited about this conversation. Blended families is something that is part of our culture today. It's an important topic. And Scott and Deana Thayer give us some great guidance. And I'm excited that you're going to get to hear about their experience and also some practical ideas, tools that they give in this conversation.
Also coming up in this episode, we'll hear from a mom and dad who are caregiving for a special needs child, but are concerned that their other children may feel neglected. It's all about real life and God-honoring wisdom here on Practice Makes Parent, and we're here to help you. Can't wait to hear Danny's answer on all of the above. This is great. So now let's jump into our discussion with Scott and Deana Thayer. They're going to tell us about this blended family adventure that they've been in since 2010. Let's listen in.
Adventure, great word for
Very
it,
great word.
I think, because that's very apropos. It's got a lot of complexity, a lot of layers, but we've now been on the journey for 13 years, just celebrated 13 years,
That's
and
awesome.
are starting to really see the fruit of the foundation we laid, even though the beginning is super hard. And we have a little joke that there's a math equation you can do to figure out how long you've been married in a blended family, and it's the number of years married multiplied by the number of kids. So we're at 65 years, so we're doing well.
Yeah, pretty good.
That's great.
Yeah.
One of the things with blended families is that there are assumptions made in blended families. What are some of those assumptions that you guys have seen? Just saying, hey, we're a blended family. What are assumptions people make as they're talking with you guys as you see them?
What a great question. Assumptions that the families are making themselves or that people outside of the family are making about the family?
You know, both. It's filled with assumptions.
Let's start with the couple coming together and the family coming together. Assumptions, I call them expectations. You have this expectation that everybody is going to like each other, and that the moment you move in together, you're going to be called dad or you're going to be called mom. That doesn't happen that way. And so one of the biggest steps a step family needs to have or understand prior to going into marriage is to lower the expectations. Similar to a golf game. My golf game, if I go out and expect to play like Scotty Scheffler, it's going to be awful. It's going to be it'll be
So
a
true.
disaster. But if I expect to play like Scott Thayer, I'll do all right. So it's about lowering those expectations as you're walking in. That way you ease some of those frustrations. As far as assumptions, why don't you talk about assumptions that are made about step families?
Yeah, I think a lot of times what's hard is there can be some shame around blended families, and the church hasn't always historically handled this area amazingly. If a blended family is formed, say, from a death of one of the parents, the way people look at that family is very different. There can be a lot of comfort, coming alongside, support. A family formed out of divorce, historically, maybe that isn't always looked at in the same way. So there can be some shame around that. And that's one of the goals for us, even in blended family ministry, is to remove that mantle of shame from around this topic and to say God loves families and he loves marriages. And how do we make this marriage last a lifetime and strengthen that and still have a culture around a strong marriage and family rather than the shame of what might have brought the family together?
What do you feel like are the biggest challenges that every step family is going to face, most likely in their journey?
Well, he hit one, and it's the unrealistic expectations, particularly with the dyad of step-parent and step-child, thinking that they're going to be so excited to have another adult in their world who loves them, and they're going to see that my motivations are pure, and this is great. And often they really view you as kind of an intruder, and they've got extra people in their life now that they didn't ask for. So I would say that is a big one. And other ones are around parenting. In first marriages, a lot of the challenges we read about and hear about that lead to divorce are things like finances or intimacy issues. And in a remarriage, it's most often conflict around parenting.
Okay.
You're trying to merge two parenting styles that maybe have been
Super
doing it their own way for years. And you've got kids now seeing maybe different rules for different kids. And so those can cause a lot of challenges. That's a real common pitfall.
Wow.
So when you decided to remarry, how did you guys discuss those ahead of time as you were entering into a new marriage together?
We thought we did it well. We read a book, and that's it. And we thought, yep, we've got this.
We got
We've
it.
got it figured out. Boy, did we not. And we got into it, and if not for the small group that we helped lead at our church in Seattle, Washington, I don't think we'd be together right now. So we sought help after the blend.
What did they do? How did they help you guys?
It was all intents and purposes a support group that we got together and we shared stories about, hey, this is what we're dealing with.
It's that community.
This is our court battle this week that we're having. Hey, my stepchild said this to me this week, and we need help. And just the feeling of that we're not alone in that, especially in the church, really strengthened us.
That's great. How old were your kids when you guys did this?
Oh boy, we can do math, right? 7, 8, 9, 10, 12.
Good job, man.
Thank you.
Scott.
Don't ask me anything else about it.
Wow.
Have there been some surprises for you, for both of you, as you came into this?
1,000%. Yes. Pleasant surprises, but also some hard ones. I was really rejected by my stepkids at first. I thought one of the best ways to build family time and help build this bond is I'm going to take them on individual dates. they never wanted to go on the individual dates. I got rejected a lot early on. Thankful for Scott in that he said, you don't need to keep setting yourself up for rejection. Why don't you take a break from inviting and let's just let this unfold? And that was from my naivete and not understanding that you really need to let the kids set the pace of that relationship. So that was kind of a serious surprise that was harder, but I also had some funny, goofy surprises, things I just didn't expect, like how hard it was to cook for a family of 7.
100%.
When I'd been a single mom with 2 littles, right? They were small, and it took forever before we ever had enough food. I'd make a meal, they're hungry again in 20 minutes. The first time we had leftovers, I was like doing a happy dance. That just was a steep learning curve for me.
Yes, I'm the oldest of 7, so I know how much food my mom had to make. 5 boys. What's the boy girl ratio for
We have
you guys?
3 boys and 2 girls.
Yeah, that's a lot. I mean, it's a lot of people.
It is.
A lot of mouths to feed.
Yeah. Big
So
change.
what about that moment? I mean, did you have it, I suppose, for one, but I think a lot of step parents do, of like, well, you're not my mom. Like, you're not my dad. Did you guys experience that? What do you do with that? How do you deal with the feelings of probably disrespect and hurt and not respond out of that? Like, how'd you guys navigate that?
Yeah, I think almost everyone gets that sentence at some point in a blended family. And it's hard. The first time you hear it, it's still painful no matter what, even if you feel you've prepared for it. But we really advise, first of all, expect that. If you think we're going to be the anomaly where it doesn't happen, you may be disappointed.
Yeah.
So just go in expecting that that's going to happen at some point, and maybe even rehearse what you'll say. And I would really say lead with validation. It's powerful to say, you know what, you're right. I'm not your mom. And it must be really hard to receive instruction from this other adult that you didn't even ask for.
Right, and that's the big one. They didn't get to choose who this new person is in their life, and they're supposed to be close to that person. It's not just a new person.
Yes.
It's a person you're going to attach to potentially.
Yeah.
It's going to be in your home permanently for a long time. You're going to call this person part of your family. So it's a big deal for a child to try to adjust to that.
That is a tall order. We chose this. They didn't choose all the stuff that came with it. So that's challenging.
Lead with compassion. I mean, I feel like that's what I hear you saying.
Validate that you're right.
Yeah.
And the compassion piece is really huge. We have to leave space for a lot of big feelings in a blended family, as the kids have also experienced loss and pain. All blended families are born out of that in some way, whether there's been the death of a parent or a divorce. So leaving room and space for their pain is a big deal.
The empathy.
And I think also positioning that step parent based on their role in your life, not their role in your kid's life. So Scott did a beautiful job with this. If we got the "you're not my mom," he didn't come in, "Hey, you need to respect your stepmom." He said, "That's my wife. I can't allow you to speak to her that way." So appealing to it on that level was very helpful.
Did both of you, or now do you advise that you talk to your kids on the front end, like, this is the expectation of how you're going to treat my wife, this is the expectation of how you're going to treat my husband? Like, do you advise that as a parent you talk to your blood children about that on the front end? How do you navigate that on the front? Can you get ahead of it, I suppose, is my question.
That is a great question. I wish we did, but we learn from experience, and that's how we can help others. So our insight and advice would be to be open with your children. The moment you feel like this is going somewhere, don't hide it. Don't hide the future spouse. Don't hide it from your family or from your kids. Be open, be communicative. Talk about the things that might come down the road as far as change. For us, it was chores, right? I had a way of doing chores at my house, and Deana had a way of doing chores at her house. I would fire my kids if they didn't do their chores. They wouldn't get their allowance for that week or their paycheck.
Right.
And then if they didn't do their chores and they quit, then that chore went back up on the job board, and someone else can go get it and apply for it and get paid for that. It was different. And so we had to communicate that going in and compromise and share with the kids, hey, this is going to be different moving forward. But I think it's critical to be open and honest with what it's going to look like.
Yeah.
Did either of you have to co-parent with the other parent? Tell us a little bit about that. Co-parenting dynamics are tricky in this type of situation.
We both co-parented with varying degrees of success, I would say, because a lot of that depends on how civil and amicable that relationship has grown to be since the divorce, and can you really get on the same page? And so there were some challenges. in terms of those homes not always even matching paradigms. Our worldview is a biblical worldview, and sometimes in that other home that wasn't always espoused or demonstrated. So even managing that, we want to raise kids who are faith-filled and have this foundation and strong spirituality, and that may not be happening at the other home. And that plays out in everything from how they do rules to how they handle technology. My kids had a cell phone earlier than I would have preferred because my ex-husband bought them one. Even things like that. So we did have to navigate that, and it got better over time, I would say, as the kids got older, because there's less times that you have to interact and swap, and then kids are driving, so you're not going to drive them to the visitation or meet, not having to have as many interactions with that person. So some of those potential for contentious interactions just go down organically over time, but it doesn't mean it's not tricky when you're in the thick of it. In fact, in the beginning, we didn't even match weekends. So we either had Scott's kids or mine. We never had a weekend to ourselves. So also taking care of the primacy of the marriage relationship, we had to be super intentional because neither of them would back down to swap weekends.
Yes. I find in our house, and we're not dealing with some of the tricky dynamics that you guys have. I mean, you had so much extra that you were dealing with, but there's conversations very regularly of, well, that's how other families do it. It's not how we're going to do it under our roof or here. How did you navigate talking respectfully about the ex-spouses?
That's an important question.
Because that, I'm sure, is a way that God can be honored, and even to your children, they can learn about respectful language. Like, how do you coach the families that you're coaching? How do you coach them in that? Because that's tricky. I mean, you've got your own hurt that you probably feel. Did you have kind of rules in your own mind of how to go about that?
Yes, and another great question. You play the long game, and you have to have the perspective that this is the now, but I want to raise a child and love my child in such a way that I'm not going to cause resentment or have them look at me in a negative light. And I'm just going to let things play out. And at some point, they're going to understand and realize what went down and get the full story. But you have to play the long game, because the moment you start speaking negatively about your ex, you layer that poison in. And then your ex might match that. And the next thing you know, it's not a fun situation at all.
What I hear you saying too, and I think it's fabulous for absolutely every person listening, is it's not about justice or us being seen as the right one and they're the wrong one, and like sorting it out and letting everybody know who's right and who's wrong. The long game helps you to kind of get around that.
Correct.
Because you're creating trust with your kids in this place of potentially difficult things being said about you. And the way you do that is you bring the healthiness. And so you don't want to co-undermine, you want to truly co-parent.
Absolutely.
And so with parents, how do you encourage they talk about this? Do they need a counselor to set this up? What's a good place to go to set this kind of framework up as they're going into separate homes?
I like that you mentioned counseling. We're big fans. We kind of joked that we had just a therapist on speed dial in the early years, just because if we hit a speed bump, sometimes you need that objective perspective. But also getting support around you, which Scott mentioned earlier, that might be in the form of a mentor couple who's maybe just further down the road than you are on the blended family journey. Or if your church does offer a support group, a small group, get in that, because being in a room with other people who are living it, they may have said, hey, we tried this and it was helpful. Or we tried this and it backfired. And then oh, maybe I shouldn't try that. Because parents need to have these conversations, not in a vacuum. It can feel isolating to be in a blended family. So if you can be walking alongside the journey with others, that makes a huge difference.
It's just wisdom. It's inviting wisdom, right? Whether it's through a mentor or an actual counselor. I think that's
because
so wise.
In this place, the kids become the priority. On how are we going to raise kids in a storm that they didn't plan on going into? And so if there are two parents that truly are loving to the kids, it's not about indulging. It's about truly teaching and guiding and shaping these kids now that they're in the middle of this difficult situation. How did you guys handle discipline? That's probably the biggest question parents are asking right now. I want to teach my child certain things. I want to guide them. I want to shape them. But the other person is not. And so how do you do it anyway?
again, at first, not so great. But then we learned that it's best to discipline down biological lines. And that means if there were some type of consequence that were to be leveled out to one of the children, it was done by the bio parent. It was agreed upon by us, but then it was handed out by the bio parent. That's discipline. Enforcement of house rules, such as, hey, when you come in the house from being out in the rain, we take off our shoes. And me being able to tell my stepson, hey, take off your shoes, that's going to be okay. But if he doesn't take off his shoes and he's defiant, then I chat with Deana and I say, hey, he did this today. What do you want to do about it? So really focusing on disciplining down biological lines.
I love the question. What do you want to do about this?
Yeah.
That's an important question.
Yeah.
You're asking Deana, what is it that you're not saying you have to do this?
Correct.
What do you
So
want to
much
do about
respect.
this for the health of the home?
Yes, because they need to see us unified. Yes, they are a priority, but we are a strong priority as well. And we need to last so that we can share with the children that, hey, marriage does work. And there is a godly way to do this, and this is how you do it. So we need to be unified in the discipline as well.
Are there just kind of mistakes that our listeners can avoid by kind of hearing about it on the front end? Because some people are navigating this. They're either in the middle of it right now or they're about to be. What are some mistakes they can avoid?
I think on the front end, in case you have listeners who are heading toward a blended family, giving kids a voice as you're planning the wedding is a big deal. Because again, as Danny, you mentioned, they didn't choose this, and they have a lot of things coming at them that they didn't pick. And so if they can have some kind of voice in what role they might want to have in the wedding, or even just how that looks, it's transformative in them feeling like this blended family is something I helped create rather than just something that happened to me. So I think that's another pitfall, is not taking the time to involve them in that. Scott even spoke to my kids before he proposed, which I really appreciate.
So respectful.
Yes,
Yeah,
he
it's
he
beautiful.
got them to weigh in on, how are you feeling about this? What would that be like if I married your mom? And then we also suggest just celebrating early on. So taking like a family moon. We took our kids to Great Wolf Lodge and just enjoyed a day at the
That's
water
a great
park. and
idea.
Just celebrate that on that day, we're not just becoming a couple, we're becoming a family. And the quicker you can move into celebration of what's going well, the better for when you hit those speed bumps, because they'll come.
And as a testimony to how important and how great that is, we just had all 5 of our kids who are now adult children here with us for Thanksgiving. And we said, what would you guys like to do? Here are the options. We mentioned there's a Great Wolf Lodge nearby. All of them.
Yes.
Great Wolf Lodge.
Let's go to
do
Great
it.
Wolf.
Memories, right? So that was really sweet and fun. A common mistake that we hear about is parents not allowing their kids the transition time between homes, because you're going from, oftentimes, over in this house I can do whatever I want whenever I want to do it. And then when I get over to this house, there's different rules. And too many times parents come in, they bring their children, hey, let's all talk, let's play a game, let's just jump right into it. We learned early on that it's okay if they want to go to their room for an hour and decompress and get ready and then come out and engage. So parents need to be okay with, let them adjust.
Yeah, we're asking a lot of kids when we say that you need to be able to code switch between 2 sets of rules,
Yeah.
2 norms, 2 sets of house rules, possibly, again, 2 sets of moral paradigms. And they might need that time in between to just switch gears.
And it might be longer than an hour sometimes
It
too for
could.
some kids,
Some
right?
families
Half a
it's a
day.
day,
Yeah.
yeah.
Longer. Yeah.
And not taking things personally from the kids. What you're talking about are probably behavior outbursts, emotional outbursts that also come with that transition. And so you're giving them space to feel and to be who they need to be. Talk about 1 or 2 of those outbursts that you had to deal with early on in the relationship, where you're going, oh my goodness, here we go.
Our youngest is a rage quitter. That's what we call it.
Ah.
So if we'd be playing a game and he was losing, wasn't going well, he was a stormer offer. So we often had to deal with that. And it felt there was more gravity to it, I think, because we were like, we're trying to create family togetherness and he keeps failing, right?
Yes.
And so we had to learn to, again, leave him room for the big feelings. Like, we get it, buddy. That's so disappointing when you're losing Monopoly or whatever. But could you come back? Maybe even just sit at the table with us while we finish. And that's not even necessarily a moral misbehavior, but it's just immaturity and inability to handle some of what's going on. But when we're working to have, forced family fun or whatever it is, it's disappointing to us. We're like, we can't
100%.
have people leaving.
Yeah.
And then certainly when we navigated the teen years, and we had several years with all 5 being teenagers, just a lot of hormonal angstiness everywhere, we really had to talk through how we speak respectfully to each other, because it's kind of a Venn diagram. It's not just respectful to the adult figures, but how do you speak to these siblings? And
How do they get along?
absolutely,
Yeah.
because they're also trying to form relationships with people that essentially were strangers.
How did you encourage like kind of unity or connection or friendship even between the new siblings?
We, I think, did this one well up front, is where we just said, let's let it happen naturally
Yeah.
and not force it.
Yeah.
When we were dating, they wanted to be together all the time.
Oh.
And it was fantastic. And that's what led to some of those false expectations. This is how it's going to be
Yeah,
when
look
we're
at
married.
this.
This is fantastic.
It doesn't have to be forced, right?
Yeah, this is great. But then when you change and get married and move into someone's home, everything is now different. And we did that one all right, I think. We just let it happen.
Yeah,
Now, there were
organically.
times when we had family meetings, maybe a dozen of them in 13 years, but it was all around expectations in the home, vacations, and how we treat each other. But we let it happen organically, wouldn't you say?
And I think it helped them bond that we would meet all together sometimes, or invite their input on where do you want to go on vacation, and just provide opportunity for the family to be together without forcing it. So, hey, there's this option to do this. You can come, you don't have to. Also, a lot of parallel time. I felt very thankful for the time in the car with my kids in this season. Sometimes, particularly my son would open up more when he's not looking at me. We're just in the car, right? That parallel, just getting a chance to go, hey, what's going well for you so far? We would invite that feedback. What's hard? What could I be doing better to serve you as we blend? That kind of thing was really helpful too. Sometimes talking to them one-on-one.
So you have adult children now.
Yes.
Do you or have they reflected back to you how that experience was? Have they given you insights? Because we probably got a lot of people listening that are in it right now. What can you say about what your children have shared that's insightful or kind of encouraging to the people that are in it right now?
Is that long game?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This one's hard because you dive into their emotions and their experience, and you think you know what they're feeling, but as adult children, they tell you something different, and then you feel that pain again. One of my children confided in me that said it was hard because I felt extremely torn, and being with my bio mom, feeling like I have to take care of her, be there for her, be responsible. And if I started liking Deana or loving Deana, I'm starting to abandon her. And
The
so it was,
disloyalty.
yeah, it
Yes.
was very much a torn emotion in her. And the others were about expectations and rules and feeling like they didn't belong. Like I have my own other family. I've heard that a couple of times, that when we're with you, we feel like we're with your other family. And that's hard to hear. So, yeah, there's a lot of emotion going on in their minds that aren't being exposed.
But I think there's encouragement here too, as they've grown older and kind of reflected on their experience being in a blended family. I know both my son and daughter have said, I'm now so grateful to have had this experience. It's helped me interact
Wow.
with people that I didn't know before, have grace, bring some sensitivity and flexibility.
Wow.
And both of them, with it just being the two of them and me, they both said, I loved being in a bigger family. My son said, I would get excited on Wednesdays because it was the one weeknight we had all 5 kids. And he said, I'd get excited. It was almost like getting extra friends. Doesn't mean there weren't hard parts, but it was a happy thing too. And as they're now young adults, they've been able to say, actually, I gained some really important skills around relationships because of being in a blended family, and feel grateful for that experience.
That's awesome to hear.
And what I think you guys just talked about is the different personalities in the home. It makes sense that they would feel that sense of loyalty to the other parent, and guilt that they are attaching potentially to a new parent. And I do think it's important to point that out with all our kids, but especially the kids that have a very loyal personality, saying, hey, I know this is tough for you. yet you can still love and attach this other person without being disloyal to your mom or to your dad. And if you do that, I truly believe you go to the core rather than trying to fix. You're going into the emotional place. I know that it feels off, that you are starting to maybe want to love this new person, and that's got to feel so bad to you, like you're holding a secret, like you're being mean to your mom or to your dad by attaching. I get it. And then you go to, and let's figure out how you can connect, because this is another person you can connect with, and they want to love you too.
Well said, Danny, and you can add a layer to that. When that bio parent is speaking negatively about the step parent
Yes.
to the child and saying falsehoods and sharing things that aren't true and building that poison into that one who wants to be loyal, it makes it even more difficult for that child to bond with the step parent. That's another layer that needs to be considered.
And what do you do in that situation? Do you kind of invite the child to share with you when you know, like, seeds of distrust planted against you? Do you bring it up? Do you wait for them to?
Sure. If you have nothing to hide, then you have nothing to worry about. And we just lived our life and just let those false accusations all of a sudden become false in their minds as well.
Jesus did that.
Because
Yes.
the moment you step in and get defensive and say, well, that's just not true, now you're attacking their mom or their dad. And it puts that child in an even harder spot.
Impossible spot.
So-
And it's a gift you give your kids if you give them permission to love their bio parent well.
Yes.
We wanted to be the family that said, have a great time this weekend, and not feel stressed out about, if I have fun over there, is that betraying this other parent? That's a gift you give your kids, to say, we want you to have that connection with your other parent. Feel free to love them. But it is so true. If there is falsehood being perpetuated, the best way to let that dissipate is live well. Be the example that they see, oh, that isn't true. I see the way my parent or a step parent is behaving. It doesn't match what
Well,
mom or
Proverbs
dad is
talks
saying.
about that, right? To a loving answer turns away wrath, and that's what you're doing. You're providing a loving response to something that is otherwise hurtful or untrue. And as you do that, you bring health to the relationship. It becomes about your child's development, not your own personal emotional needs in that moment.
Let God do that. That's
Yes.
Romans 12, right? Let
Yes.
that be up to the Lord.
Yes.
And we just try and live well and in a way that's honoring to God before these kids who are watching.
Absolutely. I think something we don't think about often is that Jesus had a step parent. Like, he had the perfect Father God, and then he had a step parent. I'm sure Joseph didn't get absolutely everything right, but there was grace within that family, and Joseph was a stepdad. You know, he kind of knew the lay of the land, even though there wasn't another physical dad in the picture. He knew. And so, yeah, it's just interesting to think about that in Jesus' own family. There was this dynamic.
This was one of my favorite realizations, was if you look in Scripture, find me an intact family
Yeah.
in Scripture.
Right.
Sure, there are some, but there's not a whole lot
There's
of
no
them.
perfect family.
Yeah, there's a lot of steps, and there's a lot of other things that happened in Scripture.
Yes.
And when we lead our blended family group, and we talk to a couple for the first time, and there's this sense of shame that they come in because the church has done a poor job in this world. And you share with them, hey, Jesus was a stepson, and he had stepbrothers. Could you imagine being Christ's stepbrother? I mean, that's just ridiculous. Imagine being James.
Be a little rough.
It'd be hard.
Totally.
And then imagine being his, when Jesus says, you're not my dad, I know.
Yeah.
Right? But that sense of, this isn't this scarlet letter that I'm divorced and remarried and now I'm worthless. And it really validates individuals. And it was one of my favorite things I learned coming through my divorce.
I love
and
that so
remarriage,
much.
yeah.
You're really a coach to people listening right now that are going through this, or they know somebody that is going through this, that they can kind of pass on this gold that you guys are offering. What are two things that, just in parting, words of encouragement, words of challenge, just kind of a heads up to
We could even
our
have three.
listeners. You could have three.
Wow.
If you have
Right?
three
Look
or
at this
four,
extravagance.
even, yes, it can be more than two. But just a couple things for each of you that stand out, the parting words.
Yeah, I think pack your patience is one of the ones I always say.
That's good.
It takes longer than you think for this to gel and feel like a family. The data is about 5 to 7 years. The encouraging thing is that means for some families it's way shorter, some families it's longer. So being aware that this is going to take time to feel like we're a family and everyone understands their role and their place. And just the encouragement, though, that I would have is you really do start to get to see the fruit later. Now we have young adult kids who we are in great relationships with. I just went to Seattle to speak at a parenting conference and reached out to my stepkids, and I got to have dinner with them. And before, they were rejecting my dates, remember? So it's just huge, the progress that time brings. So that patience is really key. And then I would say also do some things to bring a team dynamic or a family identity that can help you feel really close. Like we came up with a family nickname. Our last name is Thayer. My first last name started with a D, and there's 7 of us, so we're TD7. And that really bonded us. We could check in at restaurants, put us on the waiting list as TD7. When we broke out of an escape room, they let you sign your name. We put TD7.
That's
Just
really
something that
cute.
brings a bonding that makes it feel like this is our family unit. Those can be some fun things. It doesn't have to be a nickname, but something that brings some bonding and a team dynamic.
And
What would you say?
even our group chat that we're in is called TD7.
It is. Yeah.
And
Our family text
our
thread.
daughter, now we refer to our children as our children, which is kind of neat. We don't say my stepkids, unless we're in a context like this. But our daughter happened to be behind a car with a license plate with TD7 on it. Took a snapshot, and now that's our image. So we
the
started
chances of
that
that?
So cool.
very early on, and it's lasted that long. I would say for parents who are in this right now or who have friends who are in this, a couple things. One would be to look through this situation through the eyes of your children and the hearts of your children. Not what you want them to feel, but what they're actually feeling, and consider their emotions and consider what they're dealing with. That'll give you that patience and that long perspective. And then speaking of patience, our daughter, my stepdaughter, is engaged and recently asked me to officiate the wedding. So we have
That
really...
makes me want to cry.
It was
beautiful.
It was unexpected. I'm sitting in my office and I get a phone call, and
What a gift.
What a gift.
yeah, an absolute gift. And I was dumbfounded, but nothing but honored to be able to say yes to that. So in September, we're going to officiate her wedding, which is great.
Got goosebumps. It's
Right?
just really beautiful.
Yeah.
Lovely to hear.
It's worth it.
Really, what I've heard you say throughout the whole time is giving them choices, giving them options, and asking them questions along the way. I love how
Curiosity.
intentional you both have been. And it shows that you've entered this with hearts of love and humility, which is important. I'm sure there are moments where you're wanting things to meet your needs, the situations you're trying to meet your own needs, but it sounds like for the most part, you're really loving one another as you were blending the families, and that's key. Thank you for sharing your story.
Our pleasure.
Well
Thanks for
done.
having
Thank
us.
you for
Thank
having
you
us.
so much for sharing. Such great stuff. Man, Danny, I loved this conversation, and with Deana and Scott, you could just really see their respect and their kindness and their
Yes.
deep love for each other. You could just see it on their
could see it.
countenance and the way that they interact, and they've done this well. No one does it perfectly, but they've done this well, and I do really believe that this episode is going to bring to a lot of hope and encouragement to a lot of families, and also for families who have adopted, who are blending families in that way as well. I think there's some really
point.
great key tools and wisdom to be gathered here. I just had very good friends of mine that adopted a little girl at 4 years old, and they've got 3 other children as well. And so there's a lot of gold in this conversation, and I'm really glad that we were able to have it.
Yeah, and I loved what they said about having a voice, the kids having a voice in planning the wedding,
Yeah.
because it can feel real helpless for kids being pulled into this new
Powerless,
family.
maybe.
Powerless,
Yeah.
helpless, the whole
Yeah.
thing, and they talked to their kids very intentionally even before the wedding, and then they did this family moon. I've never
I've never heard that
of
before either. I love
It's a
that.
great idea. I still want to have a family moon too with our kids. So becoming a family, giving giving this transition opportunity that we're a family unit. They talked about the 7TD or TD7
Yes.
concept, creating a something they could connect with or connect on as a family.
A
and
new
giving their
family
kids
identity,
options.
really.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Uh-huh.
And really it seems so simple, but sometimes kids just need that to get their mindset to catch up with what their emotions are saying, to press up against. And it's important to know that our kids want to be loyal to both parents. And if you're listening and you're in the middle of all this, make sure you don't participate in that disconnection from their biological parent. We have a natural desire to be in relationship with our biological parents. There's nothing wrong with that. What you want to change, it's not an or, it's an and. And you can also connect with this new parent that you are going to connect with in a very different and unique way. It's not to be disloyal towards your biological parent. And if you take that pressure away and let your child know, hey, I want you to be connected really tightly with your other parent. And that's when there are not super dangerous things or other things happening in that other home. We do need to place boundaries there if that's happening. But if it's a cordial type of separation, divorce, make sure you're not undermining any of that and bringing passive aggressiveness into it. The connection questions that Scott and Deana talked about, checking in, hey, what's going well? What's not going well? Those are key. We need to check in with our kids in this type of situation to have them have a platform to be able to share when things aren't going well. And what maybe some ideas of how they think it could go better. And maybe some places where they haven't felt heard because you may be distracted trying to manage so many different things, and their voice feels unheard now that they're new siblings, and their biological parent is now trying to attach to those other siblings, and you feel lost in the mix. Parents, make sure you open up opportunities, platforms on a consistent basis for your kids to be able to share what they think is just not going well, and then make the adjustments. Have this be a weekly, daily, monthly adjustment reality as you're trying to blend a family imperfectly. And that's what Scott and Deana shared, that there's still imperfection even in the adult years. There's still some challenges there. It's not going to be perfect, but you see how the relationship has grown over time to the point that there is an attachment that's formed, but it takes patience. And they did talk about that.
Well, Danny, we have a lot of support for families at focusonthefamily.com. There are radio broadcasts, articles, and videos available.
All kinds of resources.
Also, families can get the help that they need when they need it. You can also call our counseling line as well. The number is 1-800-A-FAMILY, and they will happily take your information, and a licensed counselor will call you back. And then if you're interested in more help, they can refer you to someone in your local area. What a wonderful resource.
It is a great resource.
Wow.
It's free.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll put all the links in the show notes. Well, it's time for our weekly Q&A. This week's question comes from a couple, Mr. and Mrs. Bassett, who write, Dear Danny and Rebecca, we have a very happy family with 3 children ages 11, 8, and 5. Our middle child has Asperger's syndrome, and we obviously spend a lot of time and attention taking care of him. I'm afraid that our eldest has started to feel neglected. As he approaches his teen years, I'm wondering how we can involve him in more of his brother's life, or should we give him space to create his own life? We have to take care of our middle child, but we don't want our eldest to resent his brother. We're confused on whether to share more responsibility or let our eldest kind of do his own thing instead. Our middle son is a handful, so we understand when the eldest pulls away. Any advice? Danny, I'm sure you have so many thoughts on this. The one thing that comes to mind is this couple is being so proactive and so intentional. I love these questions.
Yeah.
I mean, just so
I'm
much
gonna give 'em a hug right
respect.
now.
I know,
Yeah.
so much respect for them and
Yeah.
just the wonderful questions that they're asking. And I think being forewarned is being forearmed, really. And I logged that quote away years ago. When my mentor, I was sharing something with her, and she said, just the fact that you're aware of this on the front end probably means that it won't become a problem. And I just wanted to encourage this wonderful couple that their diligence in their parenting and being so tuned into their eldest son is really going to pay off. And just props to you guys for just being such intentional parents.
Yes. Bassett family, thank you for sending this question in. Asperger's, or otherwise known as autism spectrum on the higher functioning end, can be challenging. It is tough, yet those kids do teach us a lot, and they are brilliant geniuses, but a handful, as you guys mentioned here. Your eldest son sounds like he's got a heart of gold. It sounds like he hasn't made it a big deal to be involved with his younger brother, and so I would advise you to give him one-on-one time, to connect with him, to explore what his interests are, tag teaming with the other kids while you rotate in some one-on-one time with him, to guide him, to have deeper conversation with him, to give him that attention that he probably really desires but may feel bad asking for. Being proactive on that can be very helpful to ward off any type of passive-aggressive type of reaction, or, as you said, resentment as well. Now your son is getting to practice empathy, which is a wonderful skill to learn as he's becoming an adult. Point that out. I notice that you love your brother in this way. I notice that you're patient with him. Those are loving things, and I'm proud of you for doing that. I know it's tough. Pointing those things out rather than just expecting them to do it helps you energize this son of yours, and give him some space. If he needs space, go, hey, I totally get it. Go get your space. But to just let him go, that's not a good idea, or somehow saying that it's bad that he's involved with your middle child, or that he needs to have a separate life. Those aren't good ideas. There's some great training from this brother of his, and he may need some space, and he needs that one-on-one time with each of you, not just one of you, but each of you, as you speak into his life and you find some fun things to do together. Hope this helps.
So good, Danny. Mr. and Mrs. Bassett, we are so thankful that you've reached out to us for help. We'll be sending you a free copy of Danny's book, 7 Traits of Effective Parenting. Community is so important, and we're honored to answer your questions. Thanks so much for sending them in. Just click the show notes and leave us an email, or you can leave us a voicemail as well.
Well, if there are any topics that you'd like us to cover in upcoming episodes of Practice Makes Parent, just let us know. Well, we hope you're sharing this podcast with your friends and family.
Well, next week we'll be hearing from a wonderful mom named Nicole Zazowski, and she'll be sharing her story about unwanted transitions, miscarriages, and the anxiety she went through during a challenging time in her life, and how she overcame it.
Until then, I'm Dr. Danny Huerta.
And I'm Rebecca St. James. Join us next time for more tips for transforming your parenting on Practice Makes Parent.